maker, not through professional background. So let's try to maintain that, and also try to jot down a lot of things. I know Dr. Ikem is prepared for us, so try to jot down so many things. You learn a lot in this industry. So having said that, I would like to invite Professor Humphrey to just take a brief overview of the Change Global Business School and, of course, the Career Service Department before we invite Dr. Ikem. Prof, please, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Amaka, for inviting me to talk about the career service, docenti, and company meetings. And thank you, Dr. Ikem, a very good friend and brother, for honoring this invitation. So I also want to welcome all the executive students. You know, when Amaka started promoting this company meeting, you know, like one of my friends from Australia said, Humphrey, this una school self, so now they drink wine also in your school. I will come and join this school where you can test, you know, good wine. I said, well, it's all about business. It's all about business, and I mean, there are so many things one can do, you know, to make money. And we are not just selling wine in our company meeting. We are talking about how to build a brand and how to also market that brand. It could be wine, it could be clothing, it could be anything. And we are leveraging on the owner itself, the person that founded the business, the person that has promoted it, that I've met. I remember when there was a day you told me about the, you know, millions of dollars you have made in the business over the couple of years, and you know, like, and nobody knows, you know, like you're somewhere in Lagos doing this business and going global. So I'm like, that is what Docenti Global Business School represents. You know, if as a business school, we cannot connect our executive students to the, you know, business realities, both in Nigeria and the globe, then we are not, you know, fulfilling our mandate as a global business school. And therefore, as the name, you know, demonstrates, Docenti Global Business School looks at all these features that can enhance the business skills of our students, no matter the sector, as long as it has it's morally permissible, you know, to talk about business in that sector. We extract the skills, we extract the principles, we extract the competencies and the network that we can get from such business to expand our own business, because most of our students, they own their businesses. Some of them are also running businesses as, you know, leaders of organizations. So when we come to an event like this, a session like this, we are looking at how we can leverage on the experiences the company has garnered over the years to also promote our own business. And who knows, somebody might get interested in discovering an opportunity in having his or her own wine business. In Canada, wine business is one of the biggest businesses that, you know, give the communities a lot of money. The same thing in Italy, the same thing in, I believe, in South Africa. So, but let us hear from the horse's mouth. How can we leverage on this? How can this help us as, you know, as executives running MBAs and DBAs to improve our income, improve our competencies, wherever we are, serving as managers and business leaders. Thank you very much.
All
Yeah,
right,
thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you for that. I believe everyone on this call is actually looking forward to learning a lot around the wines. Me, I'm actually looking forward to learning a lot around the wines and spirits space. So, having said that, I would like to invite Dr. Ikim to take the floor, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and to Professor Humphrey Akanazo, thank you for inviting me to this very interesting session. Amaka, also, thank you for coordinating and hosting this. To everyone who is present here, I welcome you and thank you for making our time to be here. The subject matter is an interest to me, having been in the sector for over 18 years. I must also thank Docenti Global Business School for pioneering quite innovative approach to advancing education and especially business education. This is novel, this is new. This for me is remarkable as someone also invested in academics and in business education. I think that if we begin to profile sectors the way Docenti Global Business School does, it will give us the opportunity to advance knowledge and then also ultimately contribute to the economy in more remarkable ways. Because there are sectors that are lying low that people have not paid attention to. But there are sectors that can also be have job creating opportunity, contribute significantly to the GDP, and again, advance the collective good of making a better society. And that's the wine and spirit industry, which a lot of people do not seem to really understand what goes on in that sector. One of the things that I have chosen to do is beyond just being a trader or a participant in the sector, getting involved in import, in distribution, and all of that. I've also invested my time in wine and spirit education, having myself extensively traveled around some of the wine producing regions of the world, like you talked about Canada, to Vancouver, and a couple of other places, California, even Italy, traveling through Veneto to Sicily. And of course, even through France, traveling from Bordeaux to the Champagne region to all of those places. Listening to winemakers, listening to wine producers. And then I come to Africa and I see that what we only do with wine and spirit is basically just to consume, and in most cases, not understanding the business value chain that is associated with this industry. So I have taken upon myself to be involved in wine and spirit education. I would also tell us in the course of this program what some of the things I will have done to help advance education in the area of wine and spirit knowledge. But as a starter, for those who are new to this industry, who have been wine drinkers or spirit drinkers or beer drinkers, let me include beer consumption also. This is a sector that is basically driven, or which a sector that is driving the hospitality industry. If you look at the broad scope of the hospitality industry, you see that after accommodation and food, the next big thing you could talk about is beverages, right? So you can't have a hospitality sector without accommodation, food, and beverages. And food and beverages is one of the critical contributions in the hospitality industry that is a major volume driver. Every hotel you see, every Airbnb or every of those outlets where people go to either for holidays or for stays or short or long stays, you have provision for food and drink. And F&B is a significant contributor to global GDP. If you go study the hospitality sector and you look at the big players from the Hiltons to the Marriott and all of those with global chain, you see that much of their earnings, much of their revenue come from food and beverages, right? And then when you talk about food and beverages, it has to do with totality of what people eat and what people drink. And the wine and spirit industry sits at the center of the beverage part of the value chain. And then, of course, if you look at the beverage part of the value chain, you also see that you have two dimensions of beverages. The non-alcoholic beverages, which has to do with both water the carbonated soft drinks, and all other beverages that have no alcohol infused in them, which is one segment. And then the alcoholic beverages segment. Within the alcoholic beverages segment, you have all the categories of beverages that have alcohol infusion or that have alcohol content. You talk about beer. Beer is also part of the F&B, beverage value chain, alcoholic beverage value chain. You now talk about spirits and you now talk about wine. The most critical part of this alcoholic beverage segment is the wine and the spirit. The reason being that these are the categories that contain higher alcohol volume, and they are most of the time key market drivers, or the key aspect of the beverage alcoholic beverage sector that are in the highest demand, as it were. In the case of beer by alcohol attribution, beers are usually between 2% to about 5% alcohol. For wines are usually from 5% to almost about 16% for those port wines or highly fortified wines, right? And then of course, some spirits start from 10% to as high as 50%. And when you talk about 50% of alcohol, it is the percentage of residual alcohol contained in the particular category of alcoholic beverage, right? So having made that explanation, I also like to point out that when you talk about wine and spirit, which is the core of what we are discussing today, there are two distinct categories of alcoholic beverages. Whereas spirits are produced through distillation. And for those of us who are chemistry students, you know what distillation is. You heat up whatever it is, and then you achieve 30 centigrade in terms of this. And then, of course, the vapor is captured and translated to what it is, the liquid alcohol. And then, of course, there are other ways of also distilling or producing spirit. But spirits are higher concentration alcohol beverages. Whereas, while spirits are produced through distillation, wines are produced through fermentation. And both follow agricultural processes, especially the wine production. But let me go back to spirit a bit. In producing spirits, different categories of different ingredients can be used to produce spirit. From cashew nut, from what's it called? From guava to cassava to sugarcane. All of these kind of items can be used to produce spirit. And then, of course, oat barleys and all of those, for those who do malted barley whiskeys, which can also be used for making beer. Anyway, of course, there are some sections of spirits that are also produced from grapes, where you talk about the cognac, the brandies, and the rest of that. But having talked about how spirits are produced through distillation, now talk about wine. Wines are produced or made through fermentation, and it requires the process of cultivating the vines or the grapes, allowing the grapes to mature, harvesting them, and then putting them through the fermentation process after you have crushed them and extracted the liquid. The broad category of wine, of course, you can talk about two major broad categories, which is coming off of the different grape types. There are fundamentally two broad grape types for making wine. And I hope I'm not too fast, but I need to talk through this before I go into my presentation. Now, the two types of grapes are usually the white grapes and then the dark-skinned grapes, which are called the red wine grapes, right? So these are the two grapes with which wines are made. But under these two grapes, of course, white grapes allows you to produce white wines, while red grapes allow you to produce red wine. So in the broad category, you have white wines or red wines. But under these two broad categories of red and white, you have different grape varietals and different grape types. And that is where it gets confusing. Because when you talk about red wine grapes, you talk about things like Cabernet Sauvignon, you talk about Merlot, you talk about Pinot Noir, you talk about Pinot Meunier, you talk about Zinfandel, you talk about Pinotage. You talk about Shiraz. These are different grape varietals, names of different grape varietals under the red wine grape category. If you come to the white wine grape category, you now begin to talk about the Chardonnays, the Rieslings, the Grosstaminas, and all of those kind of white wine grape varietals, all of them requiring. So let me come back to grape to talk about wine grape again. The conditions that wine grapes require to grow are complicated and complex because you must have the right temperature, you must have the right climatic condition, you must have the right soil. Some of them grow under very rocky soils, some of them grow under clay soil. So it depends on what soil environment and what climatic condition. Unfortunately and interestingly, Nigeria does not seem to have, in the coming back home now, have the climate and the soil in adequate condition to grow wine grape. Even though there have been several efforts made to experiment with growing wine grape in Nigeria, especially in the Middle Belt area, Jos Plateau, Benue, and the rest of them, Nasarawa, and all of those places. Yes, where we grow edible grapes, because there are edible grapes that are also grown and used for purposes for eating. But wine grapes have not been established. Although we have a case where some people had imported different categories of grape cultivated in some part of Nigeria and later found out that those grapes were actually wine grapes and not edible grapes. That means that there are potential for some wine grapes to actually grow in Nigeria, but that potential has not been explored. So ultimately what I'm saying to us is that Nigeria is not a wine producing country, right? Much of what we consume in terms of wine in Nigeria is predominantly imported. So Nigeria is an import-dependent country in terms of wine. And I'm talking in this regard, alcoholic wine, not grape juice wine or fruit wine, because Nigeria has some production of non-alcoholic wine. You talk about some of them, Velata and all of those things that are produced locally or either produced locally or bottled locally. But in terms of grape juice wine, alcoholic wine, Nigeria does not have the production as it is today. So that, for me, I think would have established the broad base for this discussion. So wine and spirit is a very highly recognizable global trade that has deep influence over the hospitality sector and is a major contributor to global GDP. Now, the extent to which this contribution is, you can go and research. The world revolves around, if you talk about tourism, hospitality, food, beverages, you talk about wine and spirit, right? So having said that, the subject that we are discussing today is smartly titled Selling Taste, the Act of Marketing Wine and Spirit to a New Generation. I know we have a mix of both people who are in business and those who who are employed. So I'm going to speak in general broad concept with regards to issue of marketing and sales for wine and spirit. But of course, focusing more on the Nigerian. I know the topic was titled in the new generation or the new era, but I had to narrow it down to Nigeria so that the concept can be much more localized and contextualized. So what is the core issue? The core issue is that Nigerian wine and spirit market is no longer driven by tradition or by status or by imported luxury. There's a new generation of consumers, many of them young, urban, digitally connected, highly very aspirational, and of course, experience-driven, who are defining how alcohol beverages are consumed in the large scale. Now, these people have very much mobile lifestyle. They are focused on taste. They are driven by aspiration. And the people we talk about as millennials or the Gen Zs that have their own worldview entirely different from the rest of society. And as you well know, Nigeria and the rest of Africa is predominantly a young population, where people say about 70% of our population are between ages 18 and 35 or even less, with significant number who are driving consumption, whether for wine and spirit or other categories of what you say can be consumed. So there is, for this young population, there is this issue of aspiration, there is issue of desire for experience, and there is this desire to discover. So that's one of the driving factors even for the wine and spirit industry, which means that it is important to continue to track trends, to monitor shifting consumer attitude, because the consumer attitude is shifting. Now, so let's quickly, I haven't established the issue. Permit me to go back to look at the global alcohol market in perspective. If you look at the global alcohol market, and I have defined it in my opening remark where I talked about alcoholic beverage sector, including beer, you see that the overall consumption is still very high. So you could say that the world is beer world. The same way with Nigeria. Nigeria is heavily beer dominated. But of course, you have significant presence and consumption of wines and spirits, and it is growing because a lot of beer drinkers are beginning to see the need to migrate to drink either spirits or wine because of the assumption that there are significant health implications for overconsumption of beer. So when you walk around and see people with big tummy and they attribute it to overindulgence in sorghum-related consumption, then you know why people prefer to drink wine and spirit. I wouldn't make any health argument, but people have always said that drinking wines are more healthier for the body. And then, of course, spirits allows you some level of flexibility to play around with cocktails. So the global market size and trend, the global alcoholic beverage industry is in the multi-billions, and it is one of the sectors that is highest in terms of turnover, in terms of revenue, and also in terms of job creation. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, not many people realize that this sector, in fact, we have more jobs in the sector than the talent are available. I personally get requests most of the time to say, oh, we're looking for somebody who can be an activation manager, who can even be a bartender and all of that. And you wonder where to find this talent. And then this is a country also that says that unemployment rate is about 33 to 35%. And you ask yourself, with such a high unemployment rate, how come there are not enough people to hire in this sector? Of course, it's evident. People may not necessarily know that beyond just buying a bottle of wine and enjoying with your family, there's also opportunity for job creation in this sector, opportunity for very high turnover and to create value. So the global market is estimated to be multi-billion-dollar. Spirits account for the highest value share globally, despite beer leading in volume. Of course, you understand the value and the volume game. In terms of the turnover, the revenue generated, you can talk about spirit, but in terms of the amount of liter of alcoholic beverages consumed, beer still dominates the market. Consumers increasingly prefer fewer but more premium drinks. This is what is seen as a global fact. Of course, the evolving cocktail culture, experiential consumption, people trying with different styles of wine has become dominant. Even in Europe today, people will tell you that nobody buys the denomination wines or wines of certain tradition, right? Of certain appellations. People now prefer to buy wine of different styles, from rosé to red to white, and the rest of that. So people are beginning to experiment with different consumption patterns, with different food pairing options, and all of those things. And let me also say this, just as an addition, that because food and wine is related, oftentimes people are looking for the food or the wine that pairs well with the kind of food that they like to have. So that's one of the key drivers, pairing wine with food. And I think in some other sessions, I can go deep into how these connections are drawn. And again, people will tell you what grows together goes together. So if you're having a Prosecco, maybe you should think about having a pasta. Or if or Barolo to pair, because of course, the Italian origin. Now, I did talk about the evolving cocktail culture. And for a lot of wine producers, they are beginning to pay attention to the style, the varying style, and the changing pattern of consumers' demand. For Africa and the rest of, for Africa and especially West Africa, alcohol beverage market is estimated to be over 13 billion United States dollars as at 2025. That is a huge significant value. unfortunately, not a lot of governments, not a lot of policymakers are paying attention to this potentially huge sector. Now, issues of urbanization and youth demographic change are driving beverage consumption at a very high maximum level. While we preach responsible drinking, people also find time to drink when they go out for parties, when they go out for events, or even when they do home parties and home events, such as wedding ceremonies, celebration of life, and all kinds of events. Even you see that a lot in Nigeria. You go to wedding parties and you see all sorts of wines and spirits deposited on the table. Many of them consumed, some of them taken away by guests. And in most cases, people don't even know what they are drinking, but they just know that there are bottles of wine on the table for them to share. Now, Nigeria represents one of the largest beverage consumption hubs in the whole of Africa. Given our population, which is over 230 million, with the youth population averaging above 60%, you can very well expect that our consumption level is probably even higher than that of South Africa, except for the fact that South Africa is a wine-producing country and Nigeria is not. Okay? Interestingly, I have always made the argument that Africa is the last frontier in the global wine and spirit expansion. If you look at the global wine and spirit growth around the world, you see that consumption has declined in most countries where wines are produced. In Europe, in America, even in Asia, people are drinking less, but Africa is just starting to discover new styles of wine, and a lot of young Africans are beginning to embrace them. So the potential for Africa to become the major frontier for global wine expansion is huge. And having said that, Nigeria is at the pivotal position, being a country that constitutes about 12% of the total African population, predominantly driven by youth energy. Nigeria sits as a very strong pivot to be able to drive the expansion into Africa. And we're beginning to do that because if you see all of the global wine producers, or wine and spirit producers, all of the big brands around the world are present in Nigeria. And it is recorded that Nigeria probably is one of the highest champagne consuming markets or countries all over the world. That's why we with the issue of poverty. We are also a country where people appreciate good food, good wine, and luxury lifestyle, and all of those things. Okay, so international brands are increasing viewing Africa as a much potential market for global growth. While I will go to the key subject matter, but let me create this background. Please allow me. Now, if you look at alcohol beverage growth, especially in Nigeria, it is projected to continue to rise up to 2030. Well, some decline may be expected, but I hope that, and those declines are connected to economic issues. If our economic factors are not solved, we may experience a decline, but that is in the projection. Nigeria remains one of Africa's fastest growing beverage market without doubt. Nigeria's alcohol beverage market will continue to steady growth up to 2030 and beyond. Young consumers will continue to dominate purchasing decisions in especially urban centers like Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, Enugu, Uyo, Warri, Calabar, and then let me also explain this to us. If you look at the geography of wine and spirit consumption in Nigeria, you see that Nigeria is split into two parts. If you look at if you have a mental image of the Nigerian map, see where the river Niger and the river Benue meets at is it the circumference or the middle point? On the top part of the map, you have the northern region, where you predominantly have Muslim-dominated states. Most of these states, you don't have high alcohol consumption happening there because of religious and cultural factors. So when you look at Nigeria's alcohol beverage consumption map, please make sure you note that there is a region of Nigeria, even with our 200 million population, that has some level of restriction with regards to alcohol consumption, open alcohol consumption, open alcohol sales, and open alcohol sales marketing, right? But that is not to say, in real terms, that there is no consumption happening in that part. The consumption may be silent, right? May be unreported, or not visible? Because there are people also who are very social, exposed lifestyle, who live in those places, who may want to consume what they want to consume without making it as. But in the other down part of the map, you have the south, the southeast, and the southwest region. These are the regions or the states where heavy consumption happens, where there are no restrictions except for the standard regulatory requirements of age, of maybe, you know, NAFDAC registration and all of those things. But there's heavy consumption with high energy venues like clubs, lounges, and bars, well established in these places, with high energy events like parties, nightclubs, and all of those consumption opportunities, highly prevalent and visible in these part of the country. Okay, so having established that, imported wines and premium spirits are increasingly associated with aspiration and lifestyle. Young people want to show off their achievement by displaying a bottle of Martell or displaying a bottle of Hennessy or Glen or any of those popular brands. It's like a lifestyle defining attitude to be able to showcase what you're drinking. And then what has also happened is that there's now an advanced level where people now basically experiment with different kind of mix, different kind of consumption styles and this thing to enhance. And again, of course, you have a lot of house parties also happening, especially in cities like Lagos on the island Lagos, where a lot of people organize house parties and bring young people together to have a lot of consumption experience. So hospitality, nightlife, and experiential events are key drivers of purchasing. Let me not bore you with the revenue numbers, but significantly, both on the global and the local scale, the wine and spirit industry contributes billions of dollars to the global GDP. And even in Nigeria, unfortunately, because of our inability to track data, it is always difficult for us to know or to tell how much is even imported, how much is consumed, and how much can be reported. So Nigeria has a data problem. Unfortunately, we have to deal with that. But having said that, I want to mention that all international reputable wine and spirit brands are present in Nigeria across different categories, from gin to whiskey to tequila to rum to all sorts of spirits. And for the wine categories, you talk about all varieties of styles of wine, from red to white to the rosés to the champagne, the sparkling wines, to the all styles of wine, to the sweet and the sour wines. All styles of wine and brands are present in Nigeria. Of course, you have predominance of low-end and entry-level wines, which are cheap wines, and even cheap spirit because of the size, the economic realities of the market. Affordability is also a big factor, right? Affordability means that people want to have good quality wine or spirit at a much more lesser pricing. So as a business operating in the wine and spirit industry, this is one factor you also need to pay attention to. And of course, as a business who is also involved in selling and designing the taste or defining the taste, you also need to be mindful of this. Imported, most countries where wine and spirits are imported in Nigeria, you could talk about France, you talk about Spain, you talk about Italy, you talk about South Africa, you talk about California, in the United States, you talk about Argentina, you talk about Chile. There are wines of these different countries that are very present and predominant in the Nigerian market, led by Italy, France, and Spain. And now significant shift is being seen towards the United States with California wines and wines from Washington State and Oregon, and also wines from Canada beginning to make inroad into the Nigerian market. They all offer different kinds of varieties, different kinds of styles. Of course, the grape varietals may be universal, whether you're talking about the Chardonnays, the Pinot Noirs, or the Merlots, and the rest of all that. But they are, of course, often defined by the style of production and the country of production. Okay, so again, let me establish that there are remarkably growing interest in new world wines. And you may ask, what are the new world wines? The world of wine is divided into two, the old world and the new world. The old worlds are the traditional countries where wine originated or where early wine production is recognized. Such are countries like Italy, Spain, France, and of course, maybe Germany. These are the four major countries where wines are produced originally and they have traditions. You have the DOCs, the Denomination Origin Controllata, according to the Italians. You have the AOCs, according to the Appellation Origin Controllata, according to the French. The Spanish have theirs, you know. These are the four major countries where old wine traditions are known. The rest of them are described as the New World wine countries. These are countries that came on, and again, let me also say the old wine countries are where the original grapes that are globally known today are originated from. Whether you are talking about the Chiantis, the Sangiovese grape, and all of that. Whereas the New World wine countries are countries that are following the tradition of the Old World wine countries. These are countries that are the late comers in the wine tradition. Whether you're talking about Australia, South Africa, the United States, and all of those things. And in any case, the new world wine countries are also beginning to show their strength because they are doing significant volume. In fact, in the new world wine country is also expanding. A few days ago, I received some samples of wine from Japan. Japan is also in the business of producing wine, just as China is also in the business. So the new world wine countries are experimenting and are expanding, and the world is waiting to see what will happen to the old world wine countries, even though most of them are able to retain their tradition. So the Nigerian market has shown it can be receptive to both the new world and the old world wine. If, of course, they are properly introduced into the market.
All right. I think Dr. Ikem is having a little network challenge. I'll be reaching out to him. Okay, he's still here. Dr. Ikem, can you hear us? You are muted. You are muted, sir. Dr. Ikem, can you hear us?
Okay, I can hear you, but can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, so I think I can go on. Let me see. I hope I can.
Yes, you can go on.
Okay. Okay, so I was talking about the issues that are defining the market, and please allow me to just quickly project again. Okay. Okay.
You were talking about the old and the new world wine producers and how
Yeah, okay.
Nigerian market is receptive of both.
Okay, great. I think I've been able to exhaust that. This sharing will not be too clear for me. Please just allow me 1 minute. I need to pull up my presentation again, just to be sure that.
Doctor, I hope you will tell us when next you will be doing your wine testing, because we cannot be drinking the wine virtually.
Prof, definitely I will. I will make it an open invite for those who are passionately interested.
Perfect.
Okay, so the point that I was making is, of course, the new world wine and the old world wine countries are very much present in Nigeria and well accepted. Consumption age bracket between 18 and 35 has remained very active. And some of the defining factors of choice often has been the issue of taste, right? Nigeria is described as a predominantly sweet market because a lot of consumers prefer sweet, and they also want high volume alcohol, especially for wine, and especially for wine, and for spirit also the same. People are also passionate about alcohol volume in them. So they want to have nice taste at a very good price and coming from a well-respected region. Okay, so these are the factors that are essential in trying to market and to sell, even in trying to also source for the wines that you have to introduce to the Nigerian market. Okay, so of course, evidently, Nigeria's over 200 million population provides a very large market for wine and spirit, especially when many of them are young. Some of the key volume drivers, of course, are early entry wines, fair pricing, and of course, in countries and countries of origin. And I will show you the survey that we did, where we asked people, where do you prefer your wine or spirit to come from in terms of country of origin? And they mentioned quite a number of places that will shock you. Of course, they are still very old and mature drinkers, but issues of health consideration are very critical for them. So why old people still want to drink? I mean, older drinker with more mature palate, their volume of consumption is less compared to, and their extent of experimentation is also less. So some of these old drinkers will tell you that we drink Bordeaux, we want a Chianti, or we want, many of them, of course, some of them will tell you, I want a champagne, and I want a dry champagne, and less sugar dosage champagne, right? But for the young people will want to drink a rosé, we want to drink a much more less dry champagne, as it were. It is interesting to also know that many wine and spirit drinkers of today were predominantly beer drinkers. Like I said, Nigeria is a beer market. If you look at the key beer players in the Nigerian, the distilleries or the beer makers in Nigeria, one of them, in terms of even sales, have outpaced the sales in the country of their origin. They have sold more beer in Nigeria than they sell in. I don't want to mention their name, but Nigeria is predominantly beer drinkers. So it's important to know that most of the people who are migrating to spirit and wine today were people who were traditionally beer. And you know, beer consumption also comes with a bit of issue of conditioning of the palate, because more importantly, our food is always very spicy. We have a spicy food culture, and that spiciness allows you to have a much more other beverages, alcoholic beverages, that provides you a soothing effect to the side effects of the spicy food, right? And that's where beer has become significant. And then, of course, for those who are drinking wine and doing alcoholic cocktails, they are also very conscious about the spiciness of our food and the kind of cocktails that they the kind of wines or spirits that they go for. Okay, wine and spirits, food pairing are beginning to emerge. So in the course of selling or in the course of trying to drive sales, it's also important to identify what product you have, what the taste profile is, and what style of food pairs well with it. We have tried to develop a chart for Nigerian wine and spirits and the Nigerian food that can go with them. In fact, we did that with champagne also, because when we did champagne pairing recommendation, some people were asking us, so where are the Nigerian food? So we started making an option for Nigerian food. And I think we can make that available for those who want to look at what the chart looks like, right? Now, it is also important to understand the channel of channel and route to market, and how to do trade marketing in those channels and route to market. What is the consumption behavior in those channels and route to market? There are quite a number of expansive route to market and channels for wine and spirits. You talk about the open market, you talk about the modern retail or the supermarket, you talk about independent wine and spirit shops, quite a few of them here and there, wine bank, and a lot of that. And you talk about the grocery shops with exclusive, expansive wine sections. You talk about Ebano, you talk about Spa, you talk about what used to be ShopRite. They have, while they are basically doing all kinds of other things, they have a section that is dedicated for wine and spirit. How do you make sales, and how do you convince people on consumption in those parts? Let me say this, for young people and new generation drinkers, many of them don't read wine or spirit labels. They are only interested in the outcome, the taste. So it is important to know that the best way to catch them and to convince them is to provide them with taste experimentation, which is what you do with activations, whether you are doing sampling activations in the hotel lounges, at the nightclubs, at the restaurants, in the supermarket, and all of those things. So the best way is to understand these channels and route to market, and define your marketing strategy or selling strategy within those channels. Okay, so having said that, in terms of consumer preferences of the youth segment and their consumption pattern, I did mention Nigeria used to be a beer market. Most of those people who used to drink beer wants to drink wine or spirit, but they also still want to have the residual experience as if they were drinking beer. They don't want to have something on their palate that would mess up their taste profile, right? They want to see how that feel, that easy feel. Now, with increasing disposable income, with a lot of young people also working online and earning money online, there is a lot of money, disposable income for them to spend. Not minding that the economy is shrinking. People are still making money and they are still investing. If you go to some of the independent wine shops around Lagos, you see how much people invest in buying alcohol beverages. But because it is often not tracked, you may not know the number as it were. Okay, so what I've also tried to do is to do a chart that defines factors that influence consumption before we now go down to specific new generation of consumers, and what are the things that we need to do to be able to market and sell effectively to them. Some of the factors that influence consumption are factors around gender, age, and status or income, right? In the area of gender, men are more frequent consumers because, of course, men are more outgoing. Except for these days, you have a lot more women who also do parties of friends, and then they go out and go to beaches. But you often always hardly have that, especially if those women belong to the married category and are restricted by family duties. But in general terms, in terms of gender, there are more men. And even in the young new generation, young Gen Z population and the millennials, you also have a lot more men who are outgoing, and by social engagement, they are more open to alcohol consumption. They consume large amounts, and more often than women, of course, within the drinking age population of between 20 and 60. Well, one could argue that the margin of these age differentials is not much, because Nigerian women are becoming a lot more vocal, a lot more outgoing, that those social cultural barriers and restrictions that held the last generation of women back are no longer holding today's women, as it were. Many of them now go for especially young Gen Z ladies, they now go for travel, go for vacation, explore. I've met quite a lot of young people who I ordinarily thought would not know anything about wine, but spirit. Of course, especially wine, because wine is the most complicated subject matter. And I sit down with them and I see the volume of knowledge that they have, even to the minutest details about different grape varietals and taste profile and how to describe the taste and how to speak the language of wine, having not attended any wine and spirit school, having not taken any previous exam, but just by interaction, watching YouTube content and all of that. Okay, so having said that about gender, I talk about age. The relationship of age to consumption and of course is reflective of the issue of gender and culture. Young people are most heavy consumers, especially in the ages between 18 and 35. Among the outdoors, heavy social consumption is very, very prominent, right? Again, you also find that the older drinkers are more restricted and are not driven by the desire to experiment and all of that. Of course, in terms of status, which is the final analysis I will talk about, people with higher income will always seek to have, especially Nigerians with higher disposable income, whether they are in government or people doing jobs that give them access to money, will always desire to have much more premium alcohol, wine and spirit, as it were. Okay, so marketing for wine and spirit to the new generation, what are the things to note? The consumer profile in this category for most Nigerian drinkers, the Gen Zs and the millennials, they are the ones shaping the future of wine consumption. These guys are digitally driven. They are visually influenced. So most of the time, they look at the shape of the bottle, they look at the design, they look at the attractiveness, they look at the logo, and all of those things. So if you are involved in wine and spirit sales and you are involved in placement of products in the shelf, you must also be mindful of how you place your product on the shelf and even the product packaging. The first point of attraction is the product packaging. I've had somebody say to me, oh, I like this bottle. I like the shape of the bottle of this wine. I like the shape of the bottle of this whiskey. That is the major first point of attraction before they go to taste. So they are digitally driven, they are visually influenced, and of course, often they are heavily, highly socially connected. So they talk to one another and say, have you tried this? They take a picture of a bottle and send to this person and say, you know, so that is one thing to be mindful of. Again, it is well established that young consumers prefer accessible, sweeter, and lifestyle-oriented drinks, something that they can have while they are out there at the beach partying or in the club, or while they are out there partying at the beach, or while they are sitting out with their friends or while they're in the hard party. Of course, in most cases, these young consumers buy experiences and identity more than they prefer product. So the product is good, but does it give me that identity and that experience that makes me want to feel among and want to feel that I'm a super achiever, right? I have said that in terms of consumption trends in Nigeria, sweet wines and sparkling wines have continued to outperform traditional style wine. So sweet wines, Nigeria is a sweet market. Nobody can tell you that. Nobody should lie to you. One of the things that I've also come to realize is that people want sweet wines and they want sweet wines that are high in alcohol for percentage, which is why I went to California and I found a particular wine. And if you, Prof, if you permit me to just showcase what I have, I found this wine in California, produced in the Napa Valley area. It's called California Moscato. It has 16% alcohol. Now, it's a sweet wine, but it comes with an alcohol percentage that is of the category, of course, a fortified wine. And one of the experimentation we have done is to say that this wine can actually be paired with a cognac. You can actually use it as a mixer, as a base for cocktail. So it is wine, but you can also still have it as a mixer or used for cocktail or used for other forms of consumption. So Nigeria is a very predominantly sweet market. People love sparkling wine because of the pop effect, because of the celebratory nature. So in doing this, when you are sourcing or you are marketing your wine, you need to leverage all of those knowledge and those consumer facts. So California, South Africa, Chile, Italian wines remain very attractive because of their market positioning, because of their perception. people think that Italian wines are the most sexy wines, right? Because it also comes in different varieties. You talk about the Barolos, you talk about the Nebbiolos, you talk about the Montepulciano, the Abruzzo, you talk about the Moscatos, the Lambruscos, the all sort of Italian style wines, right? From the sweet to the semi-sweet to the very dry to, of course, the dry style of wine. So there's a lot of variety to choose from. South African wines are also considered to be excellent, the Chilean wine. So when you are selling, you also need to pitch and sell the destination. When every region of wine production have their defining taste culture. And like we say, what grows together goes together. When you're also selling those varieties of wine, you will do well to discover the style of food that is predominant in those markets and try to pitch your sales with those food pairing. We are working with a client of ours in Warri to design an Italian style team food and wine pairing culture. And that for us becomes a signature for pushing. In fact, she's the only person doing that in the whole of that region. And, she's going to end up making our restaurant an Italian style food and wine destination because she's going to do a lot of pasta and all kinds of Italian food, pair them with significant Italian style wines. Okay, so that is important, especially for regions like Italy, France, that have very well globalized food culture. It is important to also have a food culture because not all wine producing countries have a standard food culture. I don't think that the food culture in a wine producing a wine country like California is significantly globalized to the extent that you want to pitch it to the average Nigerian consumer and he will say, I want to eat a California style food. I don't know about that, but maybe it's something to look at. But if you're talking about Italian wines and Italian food, or you're talking about French style food with French styled wine, cheese, and all of those things, then maybe you can have a very strong sales proposition to push to the client. Okay, often entry-level consumers seek easy to understand wine experiences. They don't want complicated wine knowledge. You just give them the fundamental. This is the taste profile. This is the food it goes well with. And this is the country of production. And this is the production detail. I've always said when I train bartenders and the front office or frontline staff that, look, you need to have 5 data points that you can engage your guests and your customer with. What are the first 5 things you tell them about the wine origin, about the wine grape varietal, about the wine taste profile, about the food, proper food to pair with, and the best way to consume? When you have these 5 points well explained, it gives the consumer an exciting, appetizing desire to want to try what you're selling. Of course, wine education is becoming increasingly important, so I would encourage everyone to, as you continue to get into I'm also still learning, I'm also still taking courses. So as you get interested and involved in the wine and spirit industry, you need to pay attention to knowledge, to education, because it's a very highly complicated sector. Every day you discover new insights, every day you find new knowledge. But oftentimes, if you are inquisitive and desirous to learn, you will discover that where you were yesterday is not where you will be today. Because every day you make new improvement, you make new discovery. There's so much to learn. So for spirit consumption trend, whiskeys, vodkas, gin, tequilas, and all sort of flavored spirits are gaining popularity in Nigeria. Nigerians are becoming a lot of consumers of the likes of Don Julio's and the rest of other styles of spirit. Right? Cocktail culture is also significantly going. So if you have a wine and spirit product, it's important to look at what cocktail can you make out of that, your wine or spirit. What cocktail, like I've explained to you with our Lucky Day from Moscato from California, we are experimenting to even use it as a mixer for if you are drinking a cognac or you are drinking a single malt whiskey or a blended whiskey. It could be a base, especially because those single malt whiskeys or those whiskeys, because they are aged in oak barrel, they come off with some sort of harsh feel on the palate. So, but with a sweet wine that is paired with it or that is mixed with it, it can soften that level of impact on the palate. Okay, nightlife and entertainment strongly influences spirit consumption, as you may well know. Premium spirit increasingly symbolizes status and success, and you must be able to reflect that in the market. In terms of digital and social influence, note, and I have said this before, Instagram and TikTok are now big influence for beverage purchasing decision. A lot of people who want to buy go to TikTok or what they see on TikTok. So for marketing purposes and sales purposes, please make sure that you find your footprint in those places. Visual storytelling and influencers, of course, are beginning to outperform traditional advertising. While you see a couple of billboards here and there of the big brands, a lot is going on with influencers and of course with Instagram and a lot of that product being launched. One of the guys who have caused a lot of controversy in the wine and spirit consumption world is a guy called Makinwa. I don't know what his other name is. The guy who says he's a food critic, and you see him with a full load of goat meat right in front of him, right? I don't know who knows his name, but if you can mention it, fine. We appreciate that. These kind of influencers are the guys who are driving consumption culture because they tell you things like, oh, the way you hold your wine glass, and all of those things are some of the knowledge that we can actually share with those who are interested and on a more expanded timeline, because there's a lot of cultural issue, a lot of etiquette issues around wine consumption. With the issue of how do you serve a glass of wine, you cannot serve a glass of wine full. You cannot serve it. You cannot hold a glass by the bowl. You cannot allow the bottle to touch the rims of the glass. And there are a lot of rules around wine service, as it were. So those ones we can talk about. So, but these influencers and visual storytellers are the guys who are driving conversations. Consumers respond strongly to lifestyle imageries and experience-driven kind of content that also wants them to desire those kind of experience, as it were. Of course, user-generated content also boosts with people talking about their own experience and how they have interacted with different wines and spirits. Now, other factors to consider in marketing is experiential. Experiential marketing for wine and spirit is the most critical one. Like I said, most people get their first encounter with the beverage that they love by first having opportunity to taste for free most of the time. They walk into a shop, they walk into a bar, walk into a restaurant, and we say, oh, there's an open bottle for the house. And once you walk in as a guest today, you have a glass for yourself. And he takes that glass, he says, wow, this wine is so fantastic. It fits my kind of wine. How much is a bottle? And then from there, you have already found a loyal buyer. But if he never had that opportunity to taste, because taste is usually individualistic. No two people can share exclusively the same taste appeal, right? So what sounds nice to you may not necessarily sound nice to me, because of course we have our different senses, we have our different taste bud experience and all of those, right? So consumers prefer immersive experiences that combine music, social networking, and all of that. So you need to look for events like karaoke parties or karaoke night events and all of those to get people into the mood to drink. Hospitality partnerships are also critical. You do stuff with restaurants and hotels. Currently, we are doing some things with chefs, where we are doing some chef programs and helping chefs discover our different types of wine that they can do their cooking with. And then, of course, from the white wines to the red wines, you can always do your cooking with different types of wine. But we are working with chefs now to help them discover the wines that are in our portfolio that they can use to cook. So that is also another way of engagement. Challenges facing the industry, I must talk about this, because that understanding these challenges are critical to also successfully doing the marketing for purpose of profitability. One of the issues is that from the import side, there's an exchange rate volatility that affects costs and pricing. Most of the time, people will tell you, oh, this product is too expensive. Well, it is expensive against the cost of doing the business, because you have a NAFTA GMP of over $13,000 to pay for a single SKU registration for a product. And on the back of that, the container shipment from Europe to Africa is about 6,000 euros. And then the cost of clearing can cost you between 7 to 12 million for a single 20 or 40 foot container. By the time you put together that landing cost and having to realize that the exchange rate is currently at between 1,350 to about 1,500, it will impact on the cost and the cost that the product sells in the market. So it's a very critical challenge in the market. Sometimes people think that it's overpriced, but it is what it is. Of course, you also have the issue of high import duty and regulatory costs, like I've mentioned. Limited wine education also affects a lot of consumers' understanding because they struggle to really make a difference. They say, it's wine, just give me something to drink. Oh, I don't like this, it's a bit too watery, it's a bit too light, I can't even, or it's a bit, oh, it causes me a hangover. Now, with a little more wine education, they will also be able to understand that when you are drinking wine, hydrate, you need to continue to maybe take some water to help you get well hydrated and also help you avoid the possibility of hangover, depending especially if those wines or spirits are high in alcohol percentage, right? So economic pressure increases consumer price sensitivity. Today, consumers are conscious about what they spend on because there are other competing factors, and the cost of even fuel and diesel is pushing people to the cost of energy, the cost of security, the cost of transportation are pushing people to cut down on the cost of what they spend on leisure or for social engagement. So these are some of the challenges that the industry faces that we need to fear. More importantly for me is fear of fake products, which is beginning to define the market so negatively. We started a podcast, the Uncork NG podcast. If you can go on YouTube, you go and see our two first episodes. Our very first episode, we talked about the challenges of fake and adulterated drink in the Nigerian market. It's been a big factor for most consumers because today, most consumers would rather import their own wine or spirit than buy from local producers. So it's one of the issues that we're trying to deal with. While the economic challenges may force people to want to look for cheaper alternatives, we've always made the case that cheap is not always the best, because if it's cheap, make sure it's the right quality. So you may need to pay more to get it right. And then everybody who is involved in the sector is also conscious about the adulteration, the faking. Some of the most popular brands that people consume in hotels and in lounges, in clubs, have been so badly faked that you may hardly ever know the difference. So the question we always ask is, how do you identify fake from original? And how, as a business person, as a marketing person who is involved in wine and spirit, how much do you do to ensure that your products are not, or your product is not open to being faked? And even when that faking happens, you are able to educate your consumers enough to be able to identify that this is not. And one of the things I say to people is, everything you have to drink, make sure you first read the label. Read the label, check the packaging, and not just, consume whatever it is just because. So go check out our podcast where we talk about the issue of adulteration in the Nigerian market. The podcast is called Uncork NG, Uncork/NG podcast on YouTube. Now, some of the opportunities for brands in the Nigerian market is affordable luxury positioning can unlock strong market growth. If you position it as premium, as above or middle level of the market, and your pricing is right, yes, definitely there are opportunities to grow. Consumer education creates long-term loyalty. So as part of your marketing tool would also be to create forums, masterclass sessions, consumer tasting sessions where you can educate consumers about your product and have them have experiment, and also most times do food and wine pairing sessions that helps them to also have a proper complement for the different wine or spirits as it relates to the food that is most appropriate. Of course, strategic partnership with hotels to either achieve exclusivity or some sort of sales opportunities are good ways to sell, whether hotels, lounges, restaurants, and of course using influencers for visibility. A digital-first marketing strategy provides a measurable growth opportunity. So for young people, they are visually driven, they're digitally driven. Today, with the advent of ChatGPT, most of them also go on ChatGPT to just first ask the first level of questions. They take pictures of product and upload it on some kind of app to give them analysis of those products. So how much of your information, of your product information, do you have available on the web? Google marketing and all of those remarketing are very essential because it is the age is an information age, and people do not even need to talk to other people or to listen to your marketing to make their own buying decision. It is what they find on Google, what they find on some of the search engines, or what pops up at them when they open their Instagram or they log on to TikTok. That's what they make their decision by. Our children these days don't even interact with us as a parent. Sometimes, if you understand, as a parent, if you discover the level of knowledge your children have, you begin to wonder, where did you learn all of this? Because we didn't teach this in this house or in school. But they are exposed to the internet. They have access to Google, and they're able to check and type and sometimes watch video content that give them. So the same with the new generation of drinkers. So the more information you are able to put out there in the cyberspace about your products or services will go a long way. So some of the strategic recommendation is invest heavily in wine and spirit education, very important. Develop strong experiential marketing programs, build culturally relevant storytelling around the brand. I didn't talk much on this, but brand storytelling is one of the strongest ways to build brand equity. You must tell the story of the brand in a much effective way that people can connect with it emotionally, and we're able to translate that into revenue for you. Okay, focus on Gen Zs and millennial consumer habits. Their habits continue to shift. There's no, you cannot say I know them. They are drinking Dom Perignon today, and tomorrow they just wake up and say, look, we are no longer, or they are drinking a single malt today. Tomorrow they wake up and say, look, my mood has changed. You know, they have a very fast changing mood culture. So we need to continually do research and track them. Beverage, hospitality, and entertainment ecosystem also. Concluding, Nigeria represents one of the most important future markets for our spirit in Africa. Success will depend on culture, storytelling, digital engagement, and wine and spirit education. Brands that sell identity and experiences will outperform their competitors because people are looking to be defined. And the brand, if the brand helps to define them, that also gives them an essence. The brand essence to align themselves. The future belongs to brand that understand the aspiration of the Nigerian consumers. I talked about the survey that we did sometime earlier about consumers, and we tried to ask them what really defines the wine and spirit experience. The wine and spirit survey of March 2026 revealed the following fact. Majority of the respondents prefer sweet red or sweet white with Italy as their top choice of origin. Alcohol preferences leans towards medium strength or high strength beverages. Gender distribution is balanced with an average age range between about 25 to about 40, 45. Trust for them is very crucial due to fake alcohol concerns. Most buyers prefer to buy from verified outlet. They will want to say, oh, in terms of the issue of this fake, I would rather just buy from a verified outlet. And of course, those outlets can also be on Instagram, on any of the platforms where they see you constantly. Now, Instagram leads as the most influential platform for wine and spirit education because of the benefit of having the visual and the audio value. Now, brand promotion influence many consumers' purchase decision. When they see the brand being promoted, it carries some level of authenticity. That means these guys know what they're doing, right? Of course, the key recommendation from that survey was that it is necessary to strengthen digital presence, especially on Instagram. It is important to educate consumers on identifying authentic products to limit their fear of, being exposed. Now, of course, it's important to leverage brand promotion while focusing on the product authenticity as a communication value chain. Now, some of the sources that I have drawn some of insight from this presentation. You can see them on the slide. But more importantly, I had in 2024, 2023, I had written a book on the Nigerian wine and spirit market, structure, culture, and regulation. It tells you essentially everything you need to know about this market. It's a book you can read within 7 to 10 hours if you were traveling, assuming. And then it gives you a very strong perspective around the market. And I think I highly recommend it. For those who want to buy, you can go to Roving Heights Bookshop, whether in Lagos, in Abuja, or anywhere you find Roving Heights Bookshop, or even online. And you can pick up a copy. I don't know how much they are selling now, but I think it used to be between 10,000 and 15,000 at the time. But it's the first and perhaps the only book that talks about the Nigerian wine and spirit industry published as at today. And if you are in Asaba, you can also go to the airport, the bookshop at the Asaba airport, and then you can actually pick up a copy right there. Now, I know that Docenti had asked me to talk a little about our business, Drinks Revolution. I've left it for the last because I didn't want our profile to overshadow the essence of this meeting. But Drinks Revolution is a company that was founded by myself and a couple of other team members. Basically, the flagship company when it comes to redefining the Nigerian wine and spirit market. We are involved in small-scale importation and redistribution. But where we have done a lot of investment now is in the area of wine and spirit education and providing content that helps people understand and approach the market beyond the profitability, opportunities, and all of that. We're investing adequately because we know that education will help to expand the market and will bring in a lot more people who will be able to benefit from the value chain, whether as retail players, whether as importers or as distributors and all of that. In the course of doing that, we had set up some couple of opportunities within the sector. We started the LWS Wine Academy, what we call the Lagos Wine School, where we basically take people on a 3-month intensive course on the wine and spirit industry. Assuming you wanted to expand your knowledge or you were in other sectors and you were looking at how to pivot or to expand your investment into that area, you could learn things from the varieties and, of course, issues about import processes and the business, or even wine tourism. If you wanted to travel around the world just tasting wines from every part of the regions of the world, you can also get involved in learning how to do that, how to participate in wine tourism. Our podcast, which was launched last month, is also a wholly dedicated podcast that focuses on wine and spirit education, highlighting issues in the market, bringing to viewers or audience insights about the evolving nature of the Nigerian market. And we are hoping to do more. You can visit the podcast and see what we have done. For me, I have traveled to different wine producing countries and I have been to different wine conferences. I have spoken at the California Wine Institute Global Buyers Conference in Napa Valley in California last year. I spoke about the opportunities in the African market, speaking to over 250 wine producers, all from California in the United States. And then, of course, I've been on the Wine to Wine Business Forum, speaking about the African market, and that is in Verona in Italy in 2022, speaking about the Nigerian market alongside other African wine and spirit professionals. I have also been a judge at the Vin de France wine competition organized by the body that is responsible for Wine Expo in Paris, in France. Of course, supported and sponsored by the French embassy, French business, and the embassy here in Nigeria. Okay, so that has been my journey. I started off working in the wine and spirit industry, having been hired as a brand manager for a group wine and spirit business who distributor was present in the Nigerian market. And my name is Victor Ikem. I originally studied journalism, but unfortunately and interestingly, I have found myself in this space, and not unfortunately anyway, but interestingly, I combine what I do here in the wine and spirit sector with also running a PR consulting firm. Thank you guys, and I hope you did enjoy this session. So if there are questions or comments, I'll be happy to take, and I will allow Amaka to drive this session to conclusion.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Ikem. That was really an eye-opening experience. Like, I think I learned a lot from all you have said. So I don't know if anyone has any question on the comment. If you have a question, please, you can raise up your hand or you can drop it on the comment section. Having said that, you can also connect with Dr. Ikem on LinkedIn. He's on LinkedIn as Victor Ikem, and I believe he will also connect back with you, and he'll be able to take some other questions that you might want to ask. So if you have any questions, please raise up your hand and we can take your questions. I can see some people on the comment section thanking you for the session. All right, I hope you can all hear me. Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
We can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Confirm. Oh, okay. So if you have any question, please kindly ask your question. Okay, someone on the comment section said, thank you very much, sir. How do you really identify fake wine? It is very common in the market today. I think that's from Mabel Olaoye. Dr. Ikem, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. Okay, so how do you identify fake wines? For every bottle of wine that you grab, right? I don't know if you can see me, but every bottle of wine you grab, please first and foremost look at the label, right? Look at the packaging from the cork up down to the bottle. If it looks too rough to be real, then you have to pay closer attention. But look at the label. Every bottle of wine and spirit usually have two labels on the body. The front label, which is the major label, and then the back label. The front label basically deals with the brand name and all other artistic or all other design elements that you can find. But the back of the label contains all of the information about the product. Ensure to read through to be sure that when it says it's a red wine, it is actually a red wine, right? That's why wine and spirit education is also important. It is also important to read through to be sure that, and then of course, confirm if there is a NAFDAC number attached to the bottle. Where there is no NAFDAC number, and you can find a barcode, if there is a barcode on the body of the label, scan the barcode and try to get additional information. Of course, the people who are in the fake business are also smart. So they try to, cut corners and make all of these things. Sometimes you see a fake and an original product, you may not be able to differentiate because the liquid is in the body, danger is in the bottle. Now, the ultimate advice is don't buy cheap, because you see a bottle of Hennessy for 100,000 and somebody is telling you, why spend 100,000 where I can give you the one for 50,000, and you rush to go and buy 50,000. You may just be setting yourself for a kidney failure. The second point is know who you buy from. Identify original sources and buy from them, and make sure you can always go back to them if you ever find out there is a problem with what you have purchased. Don't buy by the roadside. Don't buy by, you can't walk into let me use the word, a bookie kiosk and buy a bottle of Glenfiddich. Why? That's not where it's supposed to be sold. And if it's supposed to be sold there anyway, the scale and so they are the process of identifying fake begins with being conscious about it and being curious about what you're buying. And then more importantly, identifying the right sources to buy. If you find us, Drinks Revolution, that's what we do. For the products that we help our customers, our clients source for quality products and make sure that they get it at the right price from the right importers, right? Because every product that is faked in Nigeria have those who are original importers of those products. They are the franchise owners, authorized importers of those products. So it is important to find them, pay the right price, and save yourself from health consequences.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, I can.
Okay, I think with the use of the barcode, that will help. I asked this question because it's not just limited to the wine family. It also extends to the champagne, the cognac, and all that. So these big names, I happen to be the one managing end of year party in my company, taking care of about 150 guests every year. So we actually go for the big names like the Dom Perignon, the Veuve Clicquot, the Moët Chardon. But even at that, and we have, every time we keep moving, when they say, oh, these ones they import, and they say these ones are importing the fake ones and all that. And these drinks don't come cheap. But, and like you said, I have people who will not buy drinks here in Nigeria. Whenever they travel, in fact, I have someone who brings a whole suitcase of drinks. He is very good with the wines and the cognac. He does the Italian and French drinks, so he brings them. But again, we supply Christmas hampers that we give out to staff. And then this woman that supplies us, she's been doing well until a staff came to me to report that the red label that the woman supplied was fake. So in our hamper, we have about 6 types of drinks. We have the Moët, we have Red Label, we have Verclick, we also have Hennessy. So the guy said he got the hamper, but before he got the hamper, he had bought a bottle of Red Label, which he had in his house, and he's taking a shot. So these drinks are not things you just consume immediately. And he had a visitor. He decided to open the one he got from the office. But in pouring the drink, according to him, so because he knows about drinks, he's been paying attention. So as he was pouring it, he realized that something was off. So he went to his kitchen and made an experiment of the one he bought himself and the one from the hamper. Then he realized that the one he bought from the hamper was fake. So he went outside to pour it on the floor. He said it foamed or something. So he couldn't give that to his guest. So he reported to me. And when I confronted this woman that has been supplying hampers for about 15 years, she denied and said she didn't buy it. I said, look, it might be the same place you've been buying the imported fake, or maybe you change the vendor and all that. So this thing has been there. Even when you go to the big stores, there are 3 big names that we use in Nigeria today. But even at that, they will tell you, don't mind them. One is an Italian, the other one is Lebanese. Don't mind them. They mix, they do that. They will bring the real thing. They will still go ahead. And you honestly, when you pick the bottle, you will not know. You will not know. I will go over and over and over and over again. These are drinks that cost 150, 250, but I don't know. So maybe the code that you said we should use, maybe that will help, just like you do with VIN when you are checking a vehicle that you bought, just to be sure that it's not a stolen vehicle or accidented vehicle that was not reported. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mabel. You have given very interesting insight. And I'd like us to also, myself and you, to continue this conversation off of this platform, because it's something that is very, very concerning for many professionals in the industry. You can imagine the amount of revenue being lost, the implication of the health on the health of very many consumers, and lack of trust. In fact, I'll tell you this. I met the chairman of one of the biggest government agencies in the Niger Delta region. I met him at the airport. And when I told him I'm in the wine and spirit business, the first thing he told me, your business is dominated by fake products, right? That for me was a mix of embarrassing and also a reality check to say, look, we are really, and this is somebody who is, very well educated, highly exposed, and, so people are, and of course, that when people begin to ship their own product, of course, I went to the US and I met a lot of people and they say, look, I'm coming to do wedding in Nigeria. Even though I trust you and what you will give to me, but I would rather just buy my spirit from here and load it in the container. It takes about 3 to 4 months to arrive. And I can be sure that whatever I'm sending home is something that I can reliably use instead of having myself get exposed to a fake product. So you can imagine how much that is also impacting the Nigerian economy, the jobs that needed to be created in this market, and the opportunity for people to make more money for themselves and solve. And even for those who are the importers of those original products, is also affecting their business, because if you have somebody who is a dealer in Hennessy and has invested so much in shipping maybe 4 to 5 containers that ordinarily he could have sold within 3 to 4 months, he will not have to wait for 12 months to finish depleting that, because those who would have bought from him are already sending their own shipment from abroad. Well, our behavior as a people is very concerning, but that is not to say that Nigeria is the only market affected by fake. I was watching a documentary recently of a man who also went into the fake wine business in America, who basically was cloning most popular brands and selling them from his garage. And people thought that they were buying those most popular brands without knowing that there was somebody who, of course, he was later caught and prosecuted, but that's a story for another day. So it's a global challenge, but predominantly and prominently being felt in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mabel, for your question and your contribution. Agada, Joseph, you have a question, I guess.
Yeah. Doctor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joseph.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I really appreciate the topics today, especially wine and wine, spirits, Nigeria business. We belong to the same platform anyway. I don't know that you have such a beautiful prof amongst our business athletes. Well, it's an industry that faces a lot of challenge, not just today. And the more of this problem center around the spirit, cognac, spirit, gin, and the rest of it. So my questions I want to ask, based on your experience and over time, the Nigeria experience and the brand, I'm talking about the brand equity. There is something around that business transactions, especially people that run the supermarket or chain store that will go into global listing. And this global listing, from the global listing, I discovered that some of them bring something, they bring some brand or some of those items that are not in a commercial quantity according to the quotations or whatever things that they have in mind. And I'm going to look at I'm going to ask you based on the parallel imports, fake and the NAFDAC one, that is the one registered by a distributors or by government, by the parent company in Nigeria. Over time, we begin to understand that the parallel brand, same brand, let's take for instance, like let's just say Bourbon from US, the one imported by the distributors of Nigeria would be more expensive to the same parallel imports. That is, some people that buy those parallel imports, those global listing in some of those supermarkets, you see that the variation, the price differ will be coming so the distance is too much. So yeah. What is the industry, or what are the key players in the industry? What are we saying concerning this kind of variations, this kind of difference is becoming so much? Any price differ that will come between 3,000, 2,500 to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 naira, I think is becoming so, even as much as I know that a lot of duties to be paid, a lot of government agency and clearing to be paid and all that. If a global listing, people are not buying a higher quantity in a commercial quantity, will have that price margin compared to a distributors. Are we not saying that we overprice those brands in the country and it giving that room for a parallel enforce to the market? Then thirdly, the third one, the fakers, those guys that are trying to, trying to fake some of those brands. I think if the professionals, especially you guys in the industry, like someone like Ikolo, Josine, Blue Arrow, and the rest of them, if we can look through the pricing strategies, I think it will help a long way to knit off some of those fakers and some of those issues we're having around this market. You can, if you watch very well, you see that red wine, anything red wine, you will not see anything like that. But when you come to spirit and, you see those things coming on board. And looking at it that at least sometimes I think overpricing is one of the defining factors that give room for all these manners in the wine industry, generally, especially in the Nigerian market.
Okay,
Thank you,
very,
Doctor.
yeah, thank you, Joseph. This is very, very detailed point that you have made. On the first issue of the cost of parallel being less than the cost of imported product, yes, it is expected because the charges that are on direct imported. Remember, I told you about NAFDAC approval, the GMP approval. The GMP approval cost about $13,000 for a single line
Yeah.
SKU.
Yes,
$13,000.
I'm aware.
$13,000 today is almost 18 million. When that law of 13,000 was made, a naira to dollar exchange was about $1 to $150. Today is about $1 to 1,500. So from just about 2 point something million, it has gone to 18 to 20 million naira. So that also impact on the costing. And then this approval is renewable every five years. And even at that, when you have a single GMP approval for multiple SKU, you still have to pay charges on each of the units of the product as it were. So that impacts on the cost. Then you are going to do your 40-feet container shipment. Today, to clear a 40-feet container is averaging between 12 to almost 18 million naira. With the delay at the port, the cost of freighting, and all of those things. And then, of course, the excise duty and all the charges that are placed by custom. By the time you finish all of that, you discover that the cost of doing the business, in fact, the cost of the logistics around the product is usually 2 times of the cost of the product that you are importing. So if the total product that you are importing cost is about $20,000, at the end of the day, the costs that are surrounding you being able to import that product will be about $30,000. So where do you recover your money? And you are in business to make profit, make margin, and also withstand the difficulties of the Nigerian environment. Now, for those who are into parallel, of course, global listing allows you to do supermarket products at a small quantity. I think global listing now is about 2.5 million for about 100 different SKUs. But you are not expected to do more than about 100 cartons or so of each. And again, of course, you must fulfill all the NAFDA requirements. That is okay. But again, of course, it gives you a lot of leeway. Most of the people who are importing the global listing could also possibly put like about 5 to 6 or 10 different items on one container. Of course, you still have to go through the clearing process and pay that high fee, but it's not as bad as having to export one SKU with what it is. So I think industry players can come together and try to approach the authorities with some of the challenges and their proposed solution. But one of the biggest challenge with this industry is that the people who are big players in this industry are not united, because the industry is also defined in a way that the professionals, the guys who know that this industry has a professional pathway, don't have the capital base to influence decision in the sector. Whereas the guys who are just basically traders are the guys who are making all the money. And these traders, they don't care about the wine variant. They don't care whether it's quality. They don't care whether you are pairing with food. They don't understand how it impacts even on the hospitality value chain. All they know is that buy and sell and add your margin. They are practically traders. That's one of the things that has defined the market. The traders are dominating the market, and the professionals will just basically try to do catch up or try to, so there is no that level of unity in the market that you can say, oh, there can be a single front. I know there have been union and association that have been formed here and there, but it has never been effective in addressing the issues. And again, of course, you talk about pricing. Pricing is also a major driver for faking, because a lot of people would rather they know that consumers are eager to spend less and have better, higher value. So they take advantage of that consumer greed, if you ask me, because it's greed, right? In some sense. But go on our podcast, on Cock NG on YouTube. and listen to the episode that I had with Mr. Tokumbo Ekudaya, who is a veteran in the wine and spirit industry, and see some of the recommendations that he has made. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Yeah, sorry for jumping in. I've got a question, if that's okay.
Yeah,
And also a suggestion. Like you said, this problem is not only predominant in Nigeria, even in Southeast Asia as well. You go to some very big global outlets and you can experience some fig drinks for Glenfiddich 18, 15, and the rest, and even Don Julio. But I actually believe there's a lot of opportunity in as much as there's a lot of problems in the sector currently. Because if you look at um, should I say, the tourism industry, like you rightly underlined, there is hospitality, there's food, and there's beverages. If you look at the fact that lots of people in diaspora come back into Nigeria, they're very scared. Lots of my mates always buy their drinks every time they come back to visit Nigeria. There's a lot of opportunity in such a way that if you can build, maybe, should I say, a platform or band with the professionals to create like a single source of truth that can integrate all the information flows to be able to ensure that people can validate their drinks, then there's a lot of opportunity for you to centralize the supply chain for professionals to now take control of the market, and also validate and control the education of the market. So if you invest in educating the market and also invest in trying to validate the authenticity of these drinks, then I believe in as much as the market is very challenging, there is a lot of opportunity to consolidate and increase your profit margin, because everyone cares about their health. And there's a lot of the people who have the money, a lot of diasporans who come to visit, especially in Christmas, Easter periods, will always purchase from you instead of, because they want to consume more, but they can only carry so little. Thank you.
Oh, great, Teva, fantastic idea you have shared. Fantastic idea. I think this is something that needs to be taken forward and implemented as a market-driven solution. So I appreciate this. Thank you so much for your contribution. Yeah, thank you so
All
much.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this session. So, Drinks Revolutions Limited is also on LinkedIn as Drinks Revolutions Limited. So let's also try to connect with Drinks Revolutions Limited so you can get.
We are also on Instagram, by the way. We're also on Instagram at Drinks Revolution. So
yes, so please let's try to also follow them on Instagram and also on LinkedIn.
and
Having
then
said
also,
that, I would like to
sorry, Amaka, apologies, Amaka. Feel free to also request to come to our tasting room here in Ikeja, so you can have a free tasting of some of the wines our spirit that we have. Thank you, and I think I'll drop the mic.
Yes, what's the address again, sir? Number 20.
Yeah, we'll communicate that for those who show interest. Amaka, I think we can talk about that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, sir. All right. So if you are interested, you can actually reach out to me, maybe on WhatsApp. My WhatsApp line is on your group chat. And also, we are also organizing a career fair. And of course, I believe you have sent the communication on your group, on the group chat, different group chats. So if you are in Lagos and you know you will be around, try to register and share to your friends. Also on that day, we'll be having a wine tasting by Drinks Revolutions Limited. So you also get to have fun and also enjoy the wine tasting, and you get to also meet companies that will be available for the career fair. So try to register. It's very, very important to register. So having said that, thank you so much for joining. And Dr. Ikem, I believe you shared the slides with me. So I will share it with other people. I'll share it with everyone. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, sir. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Eid Mubarak to all the Muslim faithfuls on the call, and enjoy your remaining days. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Oyetunde, you mentioned that you are interested in the wine tasting. Kindly reach out to me on WhatsApp so that I can share the details with you.